Welcome to the Sleepless Indian Historian. Here, history isn't just a collection of dusty pages. It's a tapestry of voices, of empires and whispers, of memories waiting to be discovered. In these quiet hours, let us journey back in time together, through the moonlit corridors of India's past, where every stone has a story and every shadow holds a secret.
Chapter 1: Early European Contacts, The Calm Beginnings. In the soft hush of India's ancient ports, where the measured rhythm of oars met the calm breath of the sea, the first quiet steps of European traders touched the subcontinent's shores. These were not the loud cries of conquest, but the gentle knock of merchants seeking a share of India's rich tapestry of spices, silks, and stories. Long before the British would cast their patient shadow across the land, the Portuguese, Dutch, and French arrived with the calm promise of trade, weaving their presence into the slow heartbeat of coastal life. The Portuguese were the first to come, their sails catching the gentle breath of the monsoon winds. Vasco da Gama in 1498 landed at Calicut on the Malabar coast, guided by the quiet knowledge of Indian pilots. His arrival was not just the start of a new chapter in trade. It was the beginning of a measured encounter between two ancient worlds. The Portuguese, with their calm determination, soon established small forts and trading posts along the western shores, most notably in Goa, which would become their steady foothold for centuries. Goa, with its calm blend of Indian temples and Portuguese churches, became a soft echo of two worlds meeting. Here, the gentle rhythm of local markets mixed with the measured prayers of Christian missionaries, the hush of devotion blending into the daily hum of trade. Yet, even as the Portuguese built their calm enclaves, they never fully breached the quiet strength of India's heart. Their presence was a soft ripple, felt more on the coast than in the calm interiors. Not long after, the Dutch arrived, patient and measured in their approach. They established their own outposts, competing for the soft riches of India's pepper, textiles, and the quiet wealth of coastal trade. Their forts in Pulicat and Cochin spoke of a careful ambition, a desire to find a place in the hush of India's ancient networks. Yet, like the Dutch too remained largely coastal players, their ambitions never stretching far beyond the soft ebb of the ocean's breath. The French followed, their ships sailing with the hush of silk banners and the measured songs of their sailors. In Pondicherry, they built a calm haven where French architecture rose beside the gentle curves of Tamil temples. Here, the soft breath of Europe mixed with the patient rhythms of India, creating a cultural blend that was both foreign and familiar. But it was the British who would, over time, learn to listen to the quiet murmur of India's heart. The East India Company, formed in 1600 under Queen Elizabeth's charter, arrived not with loud proclamations but with the measured promise of trade. Their first gentle footprint was at Surat, a port whose calm prosperity made it a perfect stage for the slow dance of commerce. In 1612, after a brief skirmish with the Portuguese at the Battle of Swali, the British secured their right to trade in this quiet corner of India, marking the first soft turning of a wheel that would, in time, shape the course of a nation. The British learned quickly that India was a land of quiet power, where trade was woven into the measured rhythms of daily life, and where kings and merchants alike understood the soft art of negotiation. They moved cautiously, building small trading posts in Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta, each one a calm anchor for the slow growth of their presence. The British East India Company was no king, no conquering army. It was a merchant's quiet voice in the hush of bustling markets, a careful listener to the measured hum of Indian wealth. In these early days, the British did not rule, they traded. They learned the soft language of the bazaars, the calm etiquette of Indian courts, and the patient rituals of diplomacy. Indian rulers too saw in the British merchants a new partner, one whose measured silver could fill their treasuries, and whose calm presence might serve as a quiet counterweight to older rivalries. The kingdoms of the Deccan, the Nawabs of Bengal, and the Marathas all watched this slow, patient newcomer with a cautious curiosity. As the sun rose over these early encounters, the soft hum of India's ports never ceased. Ships laden with spices, cotton, and silks moved gently out to sea, while in return came the measured flow of silver and the quiet echo of foreign words. The Portuguese, Dutch, French, and British each found their place in the hush of these coastal towns. Their forts and factories, small islands of foreign ambition in the vast calm of India's land. Yet, beneath this gentle commerce, there was a soft current of change. The Portuguese and Dutch, content with their measured gains, never looked far beyond the hush of the coast. The French, for a time, dreamed of a greater role, their eyes turning inland with a quiet ambition. But it was the British East India Company that learned to see the calm patterns of India's heart. They watched and listened, moving with the soft patience of those who understood that power in India was not taken by force alone. It was won in the quiet spaces between trade and trust. As you rest tonight, let the story of these early arrivals be a gentle comfort. Let it remind you that even the measured footsteps of trade can shape the quiet breath of a nation, and that in the calm spaces of history, the soft echoes of tomorrow are born. This is Sleepy Indian Historian, and in this calm hour, we remember the early European contacts with India, a soft beginning to a story that would shape centuries to come. Chapter 2: The East India Company's First Soft Roots. As the hush of the Indian Ocean carried the gentle rhythm of monsoon winds, the British East India Company began to find its quiet place in the patient heart of India. What had started as a small gathering of merchants in London seeking to share the gentle profits of the spice trade was slowly becoming a calm presence on the subcontinent's shores. A presence that would grow, step by step, into the measured pulse of an empire. The first English ships to reach India found not empty shores, but thriving ports where the quiet hum of trade had echoed for centuries. Surat, with its gentle markets and measured prosperity, welcomed the British with the same cautious curiosity it had once shown to the Portuguese and the Dutch. In 1612, after the brief clash of the Battle of Swali, the British secured the right to trade in Surat, planting the first soft seed of their presence in India's fertile soil. From Surat, the company's slow roots spread to the east and south. In 1639, a quiet agreement was reached with local rulers in the Coromandel coast, and Madras was born. A small fort called Fort St. George, standing like a calm sentinel above the hush of the Bay of Bengal. Here, the British merchants learned to blend their foreign ways with the soft traditions of the land, building alliances through the gentle art of negotiation rather than the loud clangor of war. Bombay, too, became a gentle stage for the company's ambitions. Once a small group of islands gifted to the British crown as part of Catherine of Braganza's dowry when she married King Charles II, Bombay was leased to the East India Company in 1668. The quiet waves of the Arabian Sea cradled this new settlement, and soon it would become a calm hub of commerce and opportunity. To the east, Calcutta rose along the slow flow of the Hooghly River. In 1690, Job Charnock, an agent of the company, chose this measured site for its strategic promise. Here, in the hush of Bengal's rich lands, the British found a quiet place to build Fort William, laying the calm foundations for a city that would, in time, become the center of their eastern power. In these early decades, the East India Company was still a guest in India's quiet courts. The Mughal Empire, under emperors like Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and Aurangzeb, held the gentle reins of the subcontinent's destiny. The British merchants bowed low in the hush of the Mughal darbars, their measured gifts and silver coins paying homage to the calm dignity of Indian rulers. In return, they received farmans, royal charters granting them the soft privilege of trade and the patient protection of the emperor's name. The company learnt that in India, power was not taken by force alone. It was built in the quiet corners of negotiation, in the gentle gift of a silken shawl, in the slow sharing of stories over cups of spiced tea. Indian merchants and officials saw in these foreign traders a new partner, one whose calm wealth could fill their treasuries and whose measured ambitions might be turned to their advantage in the soft intrigues of court and commerce. Yet, even in these early measured steps, the East India Company began to weave a quiet pattern that would shape the land's future. They built small armies to protect their factories and warehouses, training Indian soldiers, sepoys, in the calm discipline of European drill. These sepoys, drawn from the patient strength of local communities, became the company's quiet shield, a soft echo of foreign power in the hush of India's plains. The company also learned to listen to the gentle breath of the land itself. They studied the slow rhythms of the monsoon, the quiet cycles of crop and harvest, and the patient flows of India's rivers. In this knowledge, they found not just trade, but the soft promise of control, an understanding that would, in time, let them shape the hush of India's daily life.
As trade grew, so did the company's measured ambitions. Spices, silks, cottons, and dyes flowed out of India's ports like the calm currents of the Ganga, while silver and gold flowed in, a slow tide of wealth that nourished both the English merchants and the Indian weavers, farmers, and artisans who brought their quiet skills to market. In this exchange, there was no loud conquest, only the soft murmur of commerce weaving a new pattern in the hush of history. Yet, beneath this calm trade, there was a patient current of change. The Mughal Empire, once the quiet anchor of India's political breath, was beginning to fray at the edges. Local rulers grew in strength, their measured ambitions finding quiet spaces to grow. The British watched with calm eyes, learning the soft language of alliances and the gentle art of playing rivals against each other. By the early 1700s, the East India Company had moved beyond the quiet role of foreign merchant. It had become a calm force of its own, a partner in India's hush of power, a careful listener to the measured breath of politics. Forts became small towns, trading posts grew into quiet cities, and the company's patient roots reached deeper into the soft earth of India's destiny. As you drift softly to sleep tonight, let the story of the East India Company's first roots be a gentle comfort. Let it remind you that even in the calm spaces of trade and trust, the seeds of great change can grow, and that in the hush of history's breath, every measured step carries the soft echo of tomorrow. This is Sleepy Indian Historian, and in this quiet hour, we remember the company's first roots in India, a gentle beginning to a story that would shape the land's calm destiny. Chapter 3: The Anglo-Portuguese Rivalry and French Competition. As the East India Company's roots deepened softly into the fertile hush of India's coasts, they were not alone in the quiet contest for trade and influence. The calm shores of the subcontinent saw the patient dance of European powers, each weaving their measured threads into India's ancient fabric. The Portuguese, the Dutch, and the French all shared the stage with the British, their ships' gentle sails brushing the monsoon winds, their ambitions shaped by the soft glow of India's wealth. The Portuguese, the first to arrive, had for a time been the quiet masters of the seas. Their early forts in Goa and Daman, the calm outposts of trade in Cochin and Diu, spoke of a steady presence that had learned to blend with India's hush. They brought with them not just spices and silver, but also the soft echoes of new faiths and customs. In Goa, churches rose beside temples, and the calm rivers carried the measured hymns of devotion alongside the quiet chants of ancient rituals. Yet, the Portuguese hold on India's hush began to waver as new rivals emerged. The Dutch, patient and pragmatic, established their calm forts along the coast, weaving their quiet alliances with local powers. In the measured flow of pepper and spices, they found their strength, content to leave the loud politics of empires to others. Their trade routes stretched across the calm seas of the East, from the soft green of Java to the gentle slopes of Ceylon, always seeking a balance that did not strain the hush of the Indian land. It was the French who brought a new energy to the measured dance of trade. The Compagnie des Indes Orientales, founded in 1664, established its quiet havens in Pondicherry, Chandarnagar, and Mahe. Pondicherry, in particular, became a calm gem of French elegance on India's southern coast. Here, whitewashed colonial houses lined quiet boulevards shaded by neem and tamarind trees, and the soft cadence of French mingled with the patient Tamil tongue. The French governors, like Dupleix, were not content to remain mere merchants in the hush of India's markets. They saw in the gentle cracks of the Mughal Empire an opportunity to shape the land's quiet destiny. Dupleix, with his measured diplomacy and patient intrigues, began to weave alliances with Indian rulers, offering military aid in exchange for soft influence and a quiet voice in the affairs of kingdoms. This ambition brought the French and the British into a gentle but decisive rivalry, played out not with loud invasions but with the patient moves of diplomacy and measured battles. The Carnatic Wars, a series of 3 conflicts that spanned from 1746 to 1763, became the quiet testing ground for their contest.
The First Carnatic War, 1746 to 1748, saw the French capturing Madras from the British, a brief but calm victory that showed their rising strength. The Second Carnatic War, 1749 to 1754, was a more measured affair, where alliances with local Nawabs and Rajas became as important as cannons and ships. Dupleix supported Chanda Sahib and Muzaffar Jung, while the British quietly backed Muhammad Ali Khan Walaja. Each side moved with the soft steps of chess players, knowing that the future of the South rested in the hush of these quiet struggles. But it was the Third Carnatic War, 1757 to 1763, that settled the contest. In the calm fields of Vandiwash in 1760, the British forces under Ayar Kut defeated the French, marking the gentle but final decline of French political power in India. Pondicherry would remain a small, soft echo of France in India, but the measured breath of empire had passed to the British East India Company. The Portuguese, watching from their quiet forts in Goa, saw their early dominance fade into the hush of history. The Dutch, content with their trade and the soft profits of the Spice Islands, slowly withdrew from the loud politics of Indian power. Only the British remained, their patient roots growing deeper with every quiet alliance and every measured step. Yet, the British victory was not just a matter of battles won. It was a triumph of quiet observation and the soft mastery of diplomacy. They had learned to listen to the hush of Indian politics, to the slow currents of rivalry and trust that shaped the subcontinent's calm breath. In every measured treaty and every cautious promise, they found a path forward, weaving their quiet presence into the very fabric of India's life. As you rest tonight, let the gentle echoes of these early rivalries be a soft comfort. Let them remind you that in the calm contests of history, it is often the patient breath and the measured step that shape the quiet destiny of the world. This is Sleepy Indian Historian, and in this calm hour, we remember the Anglo-Portuguese and French competition, a soft prelude to the larger story of how the British learned to move with India's quiet rhythm. Chapter 4. The Battle of Plassey, the first gentle shift. As the soft currents of rivalry settled into the measured hush of India's kingdoms, a single quiet battle would mark the first turning of the wheel in the British East India Company's measured rise to power. This was the Battle of Plassey, a gentle echo in the hush of the Ganga's flow, but one whose calm ripples would spread across the soft breath of the entire land.
The stage was set in the rich, fertile lands of Bengal, where the river's patient currents nourished fields of rice and sugar cane, and where the measured hum of trade had long carried the quiet promise of prosperity. The Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Daulah, a young ruler with a fierce heart and the calm dignity of centuries-old rule, watched with growing unease as the East India Company's presence in Calcutta grew from a soft murmur to a quiet force. The British, ever patient, had built their strength in the calm flow of commerce, but they were no longer content to remain merchants alone. When Siraj-ud-Daulah seized the British fort in Calcutta in 1756, moved by the quiet fire of sovereignty and the measured duty of a ruler, the company responded with the steady determination of those who saw in Bengal's riches the soft dawn of empire. Enter Robert Clive, whose calm ambition and measured cunning would become the quiet symbol of the company's patient conquest. With a small but disciplined force, Clive moved through the hush of Bengal's fields, forging quiet alliances with those whose hearts had grown restless under Siraj-ud-Daulah's rule. In the measured shade of mango groves near Plassey, the British and the Nawab's forces met on the gentle morning of June 23, 1757. The battle itself was a quiet affair, more a soft dance of intrigue than the loud clash of arms. Siraj-ud-Daulah's commander, Mir Jafar, had already given his measured promise to Clive, turning the hush of loyalty into the soft murmur of betrayal. As the rains fell gently over the field, the Nawab's elephants stood patient and uncertain, while the British forces moved with the quiet discipline of those who knew the end had already been whispered. In the calm hours that followed, Siraj-ud-Daulah's forces wavered, their spirits weighed down by the hush of doubt. The British cannon, small in number but steady in their aim, spoke with the quiet finality of well-laid plans. By the day's end, the Nawab's army had melted away like the soft mist of dawn, leaving Clive to walk the measured steps of victory.
Yet, the true story of Plassey was not in the clash of swords, but in the calm breath of diplomacy and the patient echo of promises kept and broken. Mir Jafar was installed as the new Nawab, a quiet puppet whose strings were held in the measured hands of the company. The East India Company, with a soft voice and a steady silver tongue, had become the true power in Bengal, turning the quiet hum of trade into the calm heartbeat of governance. In the years that followed, Bengal's wealth flowed like the Ganga's measured current. Silks, muslins, indigo and rice carried on the slow breath of ships to distant shores. The British built their forts stronger, their factories larger, and their small army of sepoys more disciplined. Each measured step a quiet promise that the soft dawn of empire was rising. For the people of Bengal, the calm change brought both promise and shadow. The fields still ripened in the hush of the sun, and the Ganga still carried its patient burden to the sea. But beneath the gentle cycles of harvest and prayer, the measured hand of the company reshaped the quiet breath of life. Land revenue was collected with the calm efficiency of a merchant's ledger, and the soft hum of looms in the weaver's quarters became the quiet sigh of crafts bound to distant markets. As you rest tonight,
let the story of Plassey be a gentle echo in the hush of your thoughts. Let it remind you that in the quiet spaces of betrayal and trust, the measured breath of history finds its shape. And let it whisper that even the softest shift, a promise made under the hush of a mango grove, can turn the course of centuries. This is Sleepy Indian Historian, and in this calm hour, we remember the Battle of Plassey, a gentle shift that would become the patient foundation of an empire. Chapter 5: The Battle of Buxar, the quiet foundation of empire. In the soft aftermath of Plassey, where the hush of betrayal had become the quiet echo of British power, the story of conquest was not yet complete. The East India Company's measured control of Bengal was a gentle promise, but the calm breath of empire needed a stronger foundation, a quiet confirmation that the company's measured ambition was more than a passing breeze. That confirmation came in the gentle dawn of 1764, on the calm banks of the Ganga near the town of Buxar. Here, the British would meet not one ruler but three, a patient alliance of Indian power that rose in the hush of discontent. Shuja-ud-Dawla, the Nawab of Awadh, Mir Qasim, the displeased Nawab of Bengal, and Shah Alam II, the Mughal emperor himself, all came together, their quiet strength drawn from centuries of tradition and the soft ache of sovereignty. Mir Qasim in particular had grown restless under the quiet yoke of British control. Installed as Nawab after Mir Jafar, he had tried to break free of the company's measured dominance, reforming revenue systems, challenging trade privileges, and whispering of independence in the calm corners of his court. The British, ever patient, responded with the same quiet firmness they had shown at Plassey, driving Mir Qasim from his seat and turning his hush of rebellion to the soft murmur of alliance. The three leaders gathered their forces with a calm dignity, their combined armies a measured echo of India's ancient strength. Their soldiers, drawn from the fertile plains and the soft valleys of the north, carried with them the quiet hopes of those who still believed in the patient breath of their own kings. Facing them stood the British army under Hector Munro, a small but steady force, disciplined in the measured drills of European warfare and quietly confident in the soft power of their modern arms. Sepoys whose patient loyalty had been forged in the hush of company discipline stood shoulder to shoulder with British soldiers, their calm presence a quiet promise that the British knew how to weave Indian strength into their measured plans. On the gentle morning of October 22, the two sides met. The Ganga flowed silently beside the battlefield, its calm currents carrying the weight of centuries as the hush of the dawn was broken by the measured thunder of cannon fire. The Indian alliance fought with the quiet courage of those who still believed in the old rhythms of sovereignty. But the British discipline and their patient strategies held firm. The battle was not a loud affair of wild charges and desperate cries. It was a quiet contest of formations and steady volleys, where the calm beat of the company's drums and the measured commands of their officers turned the tide.
The Indian forces, despite their courage, found themselves divided by the hush of uncertainty. Their alliances, soft threads that could not hold against the quiet steel of the company's resolve.
By the day's end, the fields of Buxar fell silent once more. The British had won, not with the loud conquest of empires past, but with the calm precision of a merchant's army that knew the soft art of control. The victory at Buxar confirmed what Plassey had promised, that the British East India Company was no longer just a guest in India's quiet courts. It was the patient master of Bengal and beyond. The Treaty of Allahabad, signed soon after in 1765, became the quiet seal of this new reality. The Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, whose calm dignity had once been the measured breath of empire, granted the company the Diwani rights, the authority to collect revenue from the rich lands of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. In the hush of this agreement, the company became both merchant and ruler, its measured hands shaping the very breadth of the land. For India, the quiet consequences were profound. The ancient balance of power, once held in the patient hands of kings and emperors, now rested in the ledgers and quiet halls of a foreign company. The weavers of Bengal, whose soft fingers had once turned threads into gold, now worked under the hush of distant masters. The farmers, whose measured labor had long fed the gentle rhythms of the Ganga, now paid their taxes to men who spoke in careful English and counted in quiet columns of pounds and rupees. Yet even in this quiet shift, the patient spirit of the land did not fade. The rivers still flowed with the same gentle music, and in the hush of every village, the stories of dharma and devotion still whispered. The British had claimed the power of the land, but the soul of India, its measured faith and its quiet strength, remained a soft promise that would, in time, find its voice again. As you drift softly to sleep tonight, let the story of Buxar be a gentle echo in the hush of your thoughts. Let it remind you that in the calm spaces between battles and treaties, the breath of history moves with quiet purpose, shaping the world in the patient rhythm of devotion and destiny. This is Sleepy Indian Historian, and in this calm hour we remember the Battle of Buxar, a quiet foundation that would become the measured bedrock of British rule in India.
Chapter 6: Early Reforms and Revenue Policies. In the soft hush of victory that followed Buxar, the British East India Company found itself holding not just the measured rhythms of trade, but the patient breath of governance itself. The calm fields of Bengal, the measured hum of looms in Murshidabad, and the quiet prayers whispered on the banks of the Ganga all now lay beneath the company's steady gaze. But with this quiet power came a new challenge: how to rule a land whose soul was as old as the rivers that cradled it. At the heart of this quiet challenge was the question of revenue: how to gather the soft wealth of India's fields and markets into the patient ledgers of the company. Warren Hastings, the first Governor-General of Bengal, took up this calm burden in 1773. seeking to blend the soft wisdom of Indian custom with the measured precision of British rule. Hastings understood that India's breath was shaped by the slow cycles of harvest, the gentle murmur of rivers, and the quiet strength of village communities. The traditional system of revenue collection, the zamindari system, rested on the patient shoulders of local landholders who had long known how to coax the land's gentle gifts. The British, with their merchants' eyes and their calm ledgers, saw in this system both a measured opportunity and a quiet challenge. Under Hastings' watch, the company began to collect revenue directly, replacing the patient rhythm of Indian collectors with their own quiet clerks. They set out to measure each field and weigh each harvest, turning the soft promise of the earth into neat columns of rupees and pounds. The farmers, who had long known the slow breath of the monsoon and the gentle whispers of the soil, now found themselves under the measured gaze of men who spoke of profit and surplus in careful English. Hastings also understood the quiet power of law. In 1772, he established the first British civil and criminal courts in Bengal, blending the calm justice of Indian customs with the measured codes of English law. Sanskrit pundits and Persian scholars sat beside British judges, their patient voices weaving together a system that was both new and ancient. In the hush of these early courts, a new chapter in India's story was being written, a measured experiment in the meeting of two worlds.
Yet, even as these calm reforms took root, they carried with them a soft dissonance. The British, for all their measured intentions, often saw only the ledgers and the profits, missing the quiet rhythms of a land whose breath was woven from the patient cycles of rain and sun. The permanent settlement of 1793, introduced later by Lord Cornwallis, would enshrine this dissonance in law, fixing land revenues in the hush of contracts that ignored the slow pulse of India's seasons. Under this new system, zamindars were recognized as the permanent landlords. Their quiet duty now turned into a measured contract to pay a fixed revenue to the company. In theory, it offered stability and calm. In practice, it often meant the quiet despair of farmers, whose patient fields could not always meet the steady demands of British treasuries. In the measured lines of these revenue policies, the soft voice of the earth sometimes went unheard. Yet, not all of Hastings' quiet work was lost in the hush of misunderstanding. He also took steps to protect the gentle breath of India's culture. Under his watch, the first English translation of the Bhagavad Gita was prepared, its calm verses echoing across oceans to whisper their soft wisdom in distant lands. Hastings knew that to truly hold India, one had to listen to its measured stories, to the patient truths woven into the hush of every temple bell and the soft flicker of every village lamp. But even as the company built its quiet order, the hush of resistance grew. In the small villages of Bengal, in the calm hearts of weavers and farmers, there was a soft unease, a murmur that the measured breath of the land was being shaped by foreign hands. The British, for all their calm reforms, had begun to weave themselves into the daily hush of India's life. And in that hush, the first quiet questions of sovereignty and identity began to stir. As you rest tonight, let the story of these early reforms be a gentle comfort. Let it remind you that in every calm rule and every measured policy, there is a soft thread of consequence, woven from the patient breath of the land and the quiet dreams of those who live by its gentle gifts. This is Sleepy Indian Historian, and in this calm hour, we remember the early reforms and revenue policies, a soft attempt to shape India's breath and a quiet echo of the challenges that would soon rise like dawn in the hush of history. Chapter 7: Expansion Beyond Bengal. Mysore, Marathas, Sikhs. As the British East India Company's patient presence spread through the calm lands of Bengal, their measured ambition turned west and south, reaching beyond the soft fields of the Ganga into the hush of India's proud kingdoms. The conquest of India would not be a single loud act. It would be a series of quiet steps, each one weaving the British more deeply into the soft breath of the subcontinent. In the south, the kingdom of Mysore rose with the measured strength of resistance. Under the fierce leadership of Hyder Ali and later his son Tipu Sultan, Mysore became a calm but determined challenge to British expansion. Hyder Ali, a skilled general with the quiet cunning of the battlefield, turned Mysore into a fortress of resistance. His armies, disciplined and patient, fought with the hush of those who knew their land's every gentle curve and ancient secret. The Anglo-Mysore Wars, 4 measured conflicts that spanned from 1767 to 1799, became a soft but decisive testing ground for British power. In the early wars, Hyder Ali's calm strategies forced the British to retreat, their measured plans turned aside by the quiet fury of Mysore's defense. But as the years passed, the British learned to move with the same soft patience, forging alliances with Marathas and the Nizam of Hyderabad to encircle Mysore's hush. It was Tipu Sultan, the tiger of Mysore, who carried his father's legacy with quiet pride. He understood the slow dance of diplomacy as well as the patient beat of the war drum. Tipu reached out to the French, weaving a calm alliance that mirrored the old rivalry of Europe. But in the final Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, 1799, Tipu's measured strength could not hold against the combined breath of British armies and their Indian allies. The siege of Srirangapatna was a hush of cannon and quiet courage, ending in Tipu's death, a silent marker of how the measured breath of resistance can echo for centuries even in defeat. To the west, the Marathas held sway, their power born in the soft shadow of the Deccan's ancient hills. The 3 Anglo-Maratha Wars, 1775 to 1818, were not loud conquests, but a series of careful negotiations and quiet battles. The Marathas, with their swift cavalry and the patient cunning of their generals, challenged British plans at every calm turn. But internal divisions within the Maratha Confederacy, the measured ambitions of the Peshwa, the Sindhya, the Holkar, created soft spaces that the British used with gentle skill. The Third Anglo-Maratha War ended the measured sovereignty of the Marathas. Their ancient capitals turned into calm outposts of British rule. In the hush of this conquest, the British learned to wear Indian power like a soft cloak, adopting the titles of local rulers, listening to the measured breath of Indian advisors, and weaving the Marathas' own strength into the quiet tapestry of the company's growing domain. In the north, the patient valleys of Punjab whispered the quiet strength of the Sikh Empire. Under Maharaja Ranjit Singh, Punjab became a land of calm dignity and measured pride. Ranjit Singh's rule was a gentle blend of military strength and patient diplomacy, his golden kingdom shining like a soft lamp in the hush of the Himalayas. But after Ranjit Singh's death in 1839, the gentle breath of unity began to fray. Factional struggles and measured intrigues weakened the kingdom's calm foundation. The British, watching with the same patient gaze they had turned on Bengal and Mysore, waited for the soft cracks to open. The First Anglo-Sikh War, 1845–46, was a measured contest ending with the Treaty of Lahore, a quiet agreement that placed the British as gentle guardians of Punjab's young heir. Yet, the quiet breath of resistance still lived in the hearts of the Sikhs. The Second Anglo-Sikh War, 1848–49, saw fierce battles at Chilianwala and Gujarat, where the measured courage of Sikh warriors met the calm discipline of British sepoys. In the end, the British triumphed, annexing Punjab and adding its gentle strength to their growing empire. These conquests, though marked by the soft echo of battle, were never just about soldiers and treaties. They were about the measured art of diplomacy, the patient forging of alliances, and the quiet weaving of Indian power into the British vision of empire. In every calm step, the British learned to listen to the hush of Indian politics, the soft wisdom of ancient customs, and the gentle power of the land's rhythms. As you drift softly to sleep tonight, let the story of these quiet expansions be a gentle comfort. Let it remind you that in the slow unfolding of history, it is often the measured breath and the quiet heart that shape the world's patient course. This is Sleepy Indian Historian, and in this calm hour, we remember the expansion beyond Bengal. How Mysore, the Marathas, and the Sikhs met the measured ambition of the British, and how the soft hush of resistance still whispers in the gentle breath of India's story. Chapter 8: The Doctrine of Lapse and the Quiet Annexation of States. As the British East India Company's quiet reach grew across the soft breath of India, it was not only in measured battles that their presence spread. In the patient hush of diplomacy and the soft cunning of policy, the British found ways to shape India's quiet kingdoms to their will. One such policy, calm in its language but profound in its echo, was the doctrine of lapse. Introduced by Lord Dalhousie, the British Governor-General from 1848 to 1856, this doctrine rested on a simple yet powerful principle. If an Indian ruler died without a natural heir, the British would annex his state, weaving it gently into the company's growing domain. It was a policy that spoke in the calm voice of law, but it carried the quiet weight of ambition, a soft but decisive shift in the breath of India's sovereignty. For centuries, Indian rulers had known the gentle practice of adoption, weaving new heirs into the patient flow of dynasties. In the hush of temple courtyards, young princes were adopted with measured rites, their names softly inscribed in the scrolls of the kingdom's future. But the British, with their lawyer's mind and merchant's eye, refused to recognize this calm tradition. They saw only the measured lines of inheritance and the quiet promise of power. Under Dalhousie's steady hand, the doctrine of lapse was applied with a quiet firmness. Satara was the first to feel its hush. annexed in 1848 when its ruler died without a son. The soft fields of Jhansi, the calm courts of Nagpur, and the measured streets of Sambalpur all followed, each annexation a silent thread woven into the growing fabric of British rule. For the people of these kingdoms, the doctrine of lapse was not just a matter of law. It was a quiet wound to the soft heart of tradition. In Jhansi, the young Queen Rani Lakshmibai watched as the measured scrolls of the British stripped her son of his quiet right to the throne. Her calm dignity turned to the soft strength of resolve. Her quiet heart already whispering the first echoes of a measured resistance that would soon rise like dawn.
Yet, even as the British annexed these kingdoms, they moved with the calm language of reform. Dalhousie, a patient administrator, saw in the soft conquest of these states a chance to bring new roads, railways, and schools. A gentle promise of progress woven into the hush of empire. But beneath these measured improvements lay the quiet truth. The British were no longer just guests in India's courts. They had become the measured masters of its destiny. The doctrine of lapse was not the only soft tool in the British hand. In the quiet halls of treaties and alliances, the company turned Indian rulers into patient allies, their kingdoms now guarded by British soldiers and guided by British advisors. The subsidiary alliance system, crafted by Lord Wellesley decades before, had already begun this gentle transformation. Under it, Indian rulers paid for the measured protection of British troops. Their sovereignty softened into the quiet echo of dependence. The effect was profound. In palaces that had once echoed with the calm poetry of ancient lineages, British residents now sat in quiet corners, their measured counsel shaping every soft decision. In the hush of darbars, where kings once spoke with the patient weight of dharma, the British voice grew louder, weaving itself into the very breath of India's ancient ways. Yet, for all its calm language, the doctrine of lapse carried a soft shadow. In villages and small towns, the hush of discontent began to gather like a patient storm. Farmers and weavers, priests and soldiers all watched as the measured balance of their world was turned by foreign hands. In the quiet murmur of evening fires, in the low prayers whispered at dawn, the first seeds of a quiet rebellion took root, a soft promise that India's patient breath would not be silenced forever. As you rest tonight, let the story of the doctrine of lapse be a gentle echo in your thoughts. Let it remind you that even in the calm language of policy, there can lie the quiet seeds of change. This is Sleepy Indian Historian, and in this measured hour, we remember how the British wove their gentle control across India, not with loud conquest, but with the soft breath of laws and treaties, shaping a future that would soon find its voice in the hush of history. Chapter 9: Seeds of Discontent, Early Resistance and Social Impacts. As the measured policies of the British East India Company wove their quiet web across India, the hush of discontent began to whisper through the patient breath of the land. The doctrine of lapse, the calm rise of British residents in ancient courts, and the quiet replacement of Indian customs with foreign codes, all these threads, though woven in the calm language of governance,
carried the soft ache of loss for those who lived by the hush of tradition. In the quiet villages of Bengal, the weavers who had once clothed kings in the soft glow of muslin now watched their looms grow silent. British policies that favored the import of English textiles turned the measured hum of Indian craftsmanship into the soft sigh of ruin. The patient hands that had turned threads into dreams now found themselves bound by the quiet threads of distant markets. Farmers, too, felt the slow ache of change. The permanent settlement had turned the gentle soil of their ancestors into a measured ledger, and the British collectors, calm and firm, counted every ear of grain in the hush of the harvest. The monsoon, once a gentle blessing, now became a measured gamble, as fixed revenues had to be paid whether the rain came or not. In the calm silence of the fields, the soft murmur of discontent began to grow. It was not just in the quiet corners of the land that this hush of change was felt. In the measured halls of Calcutta and Madras, a new class of Indians, educated in the soft words of English, began to speak in calm tones of reform and renewal. Men like Raja Ram Mohan Roy saw in the British presence both the gentle promise of progress and the quiet threat to India's breath. He spoke of ending cruel practices like sati, his voice measured and patient, yet carrying the quiet power of dharma's timeless truths.
The British themselves encouraged some reforms, their calm belief in civilizing the land often blending with genuine attempts to bring gentle change. Schools were built where the soft echoes of Sanskrit and Persian mingled with the measured flow of English. Railways and telegraphs stretched like quiet threads across the land, promising new rhythms of connection and commerce. Yet, in every mile of track, there was also the soft echo of British ambition, an iron web that tied India's breath to the measured plans of distant shores. Not all who felt the hush of change chose the path of words alone. In the Sannyasi rebellion of Bengal in the late 1700s, wandering monks and patient peasants took up arms in the calm forests, their soft chants turning to the measured beat of resistance. In Vellore in 1806, sepoys who had long worn the quiet discipline of British drills rose in sudden fury, their measured steps of revolt a brief but telling echo of the hush of resentment. These early uprisings were not the loud roar of revolution, but the soft promise of a breath that would not be stilled. They were the quiet flickers of a fire yet to come, a patient spark that would soon find its full voice in the measured breath of history. In this same hush, the seeds of social reform also found patient ground. Indians began to speak in calm voices of the need to blend tradition and change, to keep the gentle breath of dharma alive even as the world shifted around them. The Brahmo Samaj, the soft vision of a faith that held both reason and devotion, was born in these quiet conversations. It was a sign that even as the British measured India's land and wealth, the Indian mind was quietly measuring its own future. As you rest tonight, let the story of these seeds of discontent be a gentle comfort. Let it remind you that in the soft whispers of change, there is a patient power that grows stronger with every measured breath. This is Sleepy Indian Historian,
And in this calm hour, we remember the early resistances and reforms, a quiet prelude to the measured voice of freedom that would soon rise in the hush of India's patient heart. Chapter 10. Calm Before the Storm, the prelude to 1857. As the hush of the British Empire settled across the plains and forests of India, the quiet breath of resistance gathered in the measured spaces between power and people. The fields of Bengal, the soft hills of the Deccan, and the quiet lanes of Delhi all carried the calm promise of tradition and the soft ache of a new order shaping their daily lives. By the mid-19th century, the British had become more than merchants or allies. They were rulers, their calm policies and measured taxes reaching deep into the hush of every village and every prayer whispered at dawn. From the distant offices of Calcutta, the British wrote rules and laws in the quiet certainty of their own customs. Yet, in the patient breath of India's daily life, these rules sometimes felt like a soft weight pressing against the ancient rhythms of the land. In the army, where Indian sepoys had once served with measured loyalty, the hush of discontent grew more pronounced. These soldiers, whose calm discipline had carried British victories from Plassey to Punjab, found themselves caught in a quiet tension. They wore the red coats of foreign masters, but their hearts still beat to the soft rhythms of dharma and family. The measured codes of the British sometimes clashed with the patient faith of the sepoy's birth. When whispers spread that the new Enfield rifle cartridges were greased with cow and pig fat, the hush of suspicion turned to the measured murmur of protest. For the Hindu sepoys, the cow was sacred. For the Muslim sepoys, the pig was forbidden. In the calm routine of drill and duty, a quiet insult to the soft breath of their faith had been planted. In this single spark, the hush of resentment found a patient flame. Beyond the barracks, in the palaces and temples of India's many kingdoms, the measured hand of the British was also felt. The doctrine of lapse had claimed kingdoms like Jhansi and Satara, turning quiet rulers into guests in their own courts. The hush of royal processions and ancient rituals began to fade beneath the calm shadow of British residents, their careful ledgers measuring the wealth of lands that once moved to the soft rhythm of song and story. For peasants and craftsmen, the calm flow of daily life had also begun to change. The patient beat of the loom was stilled by English cloth. The soft promise of a monsoon harvest turned to the measured demands of revenue collectors. The British spoke of progress and reform, of railways that would link kingdoms, and schools that would teach new words. But in the quiet spaces of small homes, the old ways felt the soft ache of being slowly replaced. Amid this gentle tension, there were voices that spoke of hope and change. Reformers like Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and Raja Ram Mohan Roy used the measured words of reason to question old injustices and to invite India to see itself in the calm mirror of reform. Their voices were soft and patient, their visions woven from the same hush that had shaped India's ancient soul. But these were voices of change, not of conquest, and they moved in the quiet spaces that the British still did not fully see. By 1856, the hush of India was like the quiet before a storm. In the measured breath of the rivers and the slow glow of temple lamps, there was a stillness that waited, a patient pause that would soon give way to the first gentle echo of open defiance. In barracks and bazaars, in the quiet halls of palaces, and the hush of village gatherings, the breath of India was gathering itself. As you rest tonight, let the calm before this storm be a gentle comfort. Let it remind you that even in the softest pause, the quiet breath of history is gathering, waiting to find its voice. This is Sleepy Indian Historian, and in this calm hour, we have reached the hush before the first great storm, the measured promise of India's patient heart preparing to speak in the revolt of 1857.